just missed a really fun hour and a half with me and Greg chatting. So we're here to now bring you on and to clue you in a little bit about the fun that we're having. So, Grant, I'm here with Greg Smith, good friend of mine. He is the author of An Unbreakable Spirit, My Life with Brittle Bones. It's a story of hope, and it's about his journey living with osteogenesis imperfecta. So, Greg, what
Right.
else would you like me to share about yourself and that book?
Well, it's nice to be back with you again after the first time was a blast, and I hope we can be many, many times and just keep the conversation going, right?
Absolutely.
So, um, so I'm here. I'm very glad you asked me to come back. I'm here to hopefully crush stereotypes, especially about disability issues and really anything. You and I have talked about uh, different things in what's going on in our lives, and it's just crushing things. And speaking of crushing, there you go. That's your
Hmm.
cue. That's your
Yep.
cue.
Speaking of crushing, so Greg is a funny man, and he came up the idea that during these sessions that we will be crushing stereotypes, perceptions, misconceptions. We will
Sure.
have an item with us to crush. Your
Yes.
responsibility and your mission as the viewer is to give us suggestions on what those items are. So Greg chose the item for today, so you're off the hook. Greg, would you like to give us a little bit of a sample of how we will begin crushing stereotypes?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Dr. Jillian. Well, the item that I've decided to literally crush today is, are you ready for
I don't know if I'm ever ready, but
it?
let's see.
Here goes an olive.
An olive. And
We're
so
going to start small.
yes, we're going to start small, and you're going to appreciate the question that I might have right now is how do you crush an olive? Let's see it.
Well, what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit first.
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit about crushing perceptions. I think that's the theme
Hmm.
today, right?
Yep.
And after we're done crushing that topic, I will actually crush this olive in my little bitty hand.
And
So you want to stay tuned for this. Don't tune out. All right.
don't tune out. And he might have an extra special theme of after crushing it. We're not sure, but if he likes and he's feeling a little bit hungry, we may show you another thing to do with stereotypes. But
Okay, okay, that sounds fair.
so this is Greg's book, and one thing about crushing stereotypes, perceptions, misconceptions is about the book, and he made a really good analogy about the book cover. And Greg, I'd love for you to share kind of the analogy and our recommendations for the viewers.
Sure. Well, what we talked about was when we both agreed this is a pretty nice cover, huh?
Mhm.
I helped design it, helped, didn't do all of it. There it is. But, and so, yes, we see the cover of the book. And I thought about that, and it's like, that's a lot like life, right? The cover of the book. It's a lot like my story in that if you really, really want to read the story, if you really want to delve into what makes a person tick, how they feel, how they think, if you really take the time and the effort to talk to someone and what you need to do, it's just like the book. The cover may be nice, but you're not going to get the real story unless you open up the book and actually delve inside. And so I think that's a pretty cool metaphor for not only my story, but in life in general. You just need to take the time and delve inside, and you're going to get more answers.
Yeah, and for even thinking about what I know about from osteogenesis imperfecta, things I
Yeah.
learned in textbooks. So I first learned about osteogenesis imperfecta in dental school.
Hmm.
So I can have a concept in my head about what that might look like, but
Right.
not a person's life that's experiencing it. And one thing I was laughing a lot about that we were talking about was when we think then take that to the next level. Okay, what is it like for a person with osteogenesis imperfecta? So this book is about Greg's story with osteogenesis imperfecta. And he told me that you're not some animal. What was it?
Oh, yes, I think I think too much in life, we, group people together. We group, let's say you've got 10 people with osteogenesis imperfecta in a room. We're all different. We may have the same ailment, malady, condition, whatever you want to call it, but we're all different. We all have different feelings and so forth. And I think that goes with anyone with anything going on, depression or whatever. People are individuals. And I think it's very important um, to treat them that way, to say, okay, just because you have OI, you must be this way. You must, uh, because you have OI, you must be a certain kind of a person, and it's not true. And so the analogy I made was, we're not cattle, you know, we're not cattle. We're not to be grouped together and herded together, and you know, we're not. We're individuals, and we have to treat each other as individuals, as people, and we have to really. mm, we were talking about perceptions, and I know we're going to get into it a little bit more. I think it's very important when it comes to perceptions to really put the old saying, putting oneself in the other's shoes.
Hmm.
How are they feeling, right? I, th- I think I've experienced that a lot, in my life, and I hopefully portrayed that in the book. That perceptions, I think a lot of times in life, um, a lot of the book is misconceptions. When I started working, oh, you're not supposed to work. You're in a wheelchair. You're supposed to sit home all day and watch I Love Lucy or something. And it's not always true. And we talk about dating, and there were a lot of misconceptions on
Mm,
that.
boy, did we talk about dating.
Yes, we did.
Right.
And so, and there's a lot of misconceptions there too. You know, And I mean, I think just about every aspect of life, and I think that's reflected in my story. There's been perceptions, misconceptions, and very rarely has someone just took time, as you are doing with your blog, to get to know people, on a one-to-one basis, and it's very unusual and it's very special when it happens. Because it doesn't always happen. And so, if people continue to have the stereotype thoughts that you must be this way because you have a disjointed thumb or whatever the case may be, um, you know, I think a lot of it is awareness, being aware, and that again, your blog and my book help to clear up again, crush those
Hmm.
misconceptions and bring awareness. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I find that the more you and I talk, the more we're really realizing our similarities, and then the more you're helping me understand the blind spots that I have, the things that I haven't had to thought about because they're obstacles that I don't face. So I really appreciate having the enlightenment to the things that you've had to overcome. And when I was thinking about the relationships, like I met your wife, and so when I think the relationship, I think very positive things. And of course, my energy recently was because I see that positive things, and you were telling me like, we can have really fruitful relationships, and
Yeah.
people have these misconceptions that are extremely harmful. And I would love if you would like to share any components that we really need to bring to awareness and to start crushing.
Yeah. Well, the example we were talking about before we started filming was it's my first girlfriend, and liked her a lot. You know how it is with first girlfriends, and first time I got to meet her family, and it's hard enough. It's hard enough. Relationships are hard enough, without misconceptions. And I think her parents knew that I got around using a wheelchair. I just don't know how much she told them about what kind of, how independent I am, how I was back in the day. And I think that builds a lot of misconceptions because by the time I got there and I went to dinner with them, in their house, and I could just tell. After a while, you could tell when people are just uncomfortable, you know. And to make a long story short, that relationship didn't last too much after that longer because I think the perception out there is like, this guy's in a wheelchair. You're gonna have to take care of him for the rest of your life, and what are you doing? That sort of thing. So, um, but until people really get to know you and talk to you as a person, not as an object, um, then hopefully a lot of those misconceptions will come down, or will be crushed. Um, but yeah, it's just a hard thing though to I see that there's a lot more awareness in the world now as far as understanding disabilities and understand stereotypes. And hopefully things are getting better, in that aspect. But
Yeah. And something I do appreciate, we've had some great conversations, and you were telling me about some improvements with the stadium, even that highlighted awareness of the advancements that we have. Do you want to?
yeah, it's really cool because here near Philadelphia, our big arena where not so good hockey team play and our basketball team, and we have most of our concerts. Um, the Wells Fargo Center, they're doing a really great thing now, which I just found out about. They're actually expanding their accessible seating. So not only are we going to have more spots for people using wheelchairs, canes and walkers and things like that. But there's going to be better locations. So we're not always in the back where we can't see or
Mhm.
can't hear what's going on. So just the fact that when I found that out, it just made me so happy because not only for myself that I'm going to experience those things and I'm going to enjoy them much, much more, but for other people too in my situation and people who will be coming after me that wow, if they want to go to a basketball game or they want to go to a concert, it's not going to be like they're going to have to sit in the back and with people standing up in your way and you can't see anything. You're actually going to be able to go just like anyone else. And so it made me feel good that the Wells Fargo Center is keep taking that in mind, and are actively making those changes. I give them so much credit.
And it's so marvelous to me because what it's shouting out, and this is something that I feel is missing in that dating situation, is I fell in love with the person lives in a wheelchair. How can I help them make us create a life together? If we are starting to see the human and whatever they need in order to move around life or what that looks like, then that's when we can start to appreciate one what I take for granted, but also when I hear and when I heard the first time that you were mentioning about how someone's misperception or misconceptions about what a person with that uses a wheelchair to get around, what things must be true about them, especially the way it must affect the brain, or it must affect them in some way, or they must be less than. And I often experience that when it's like people just don't want to understand, they don't want to pause to take the time. It's easier to just say less than, I'm going to create my own mental obstacle. And then when we start to have things that are showing us that they see the human behind whatever the thing is that people are going through, they pause long enough to understand the world from your perspective and how can we create an environment that's conducive to your happiness at the game. And one thing that Greg and I, if you missed it, you got to go back and watch it, but he promised me he's going to teach me about sports. So when he's telling me now that the access is better and he starts to educate me on sports, this is, it's a really highlight of our relationship here together on YouTube because becoming great friends with Greg has been, such a helpful experience being around his spirit. And this is just him as a human, without any of the labels that we have, without having yet, when we met, the book was on its way. So we got to know each other. And again, we just realized the more and more things, and we laugh and we have things in common. So that's like that start breakdown stereotype.
Yeah, and I like that. I like what you said about the labeling. I think too often we put labels on people, and I think you're absolutely right. It made me, you're right. It made me feel good that people out there, like people who run the Wells Fargo Center, are that in tune and um, that much aware, that people in my situation, that other people with disabilities, um, we like concerts too, and we enjoy sports events too. And it's cool if we can see what's going on, because we didn't have that choice before. I look at it this way: um, you go to a game, you have a choice usually where you want to sit. You want to sit in the upper deck, lower deck, wherever, right? People who use the accessible seating don't really have that choice. You're told you need to sit there because this is the place we want you to go. And this is the place, hopefully, where you can see. And that's fine. That's better than being someplace where you can't see, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But, but by the same token, we don't have the freedom to choose. We don't have the freedom to choose where we want to sit. We're assigned to that seating. And so for the arena to be so thoughtful to say, okay, so what we're going to do is, Greg Smith, we're going to give you a choice.
Mhm.
Now we're giving you a choice. If you want to sit in the upper deck, you can. If you want to sit in the lower deck, you can. But now it's not like the old days. Now you don't have to sit where we tell you to sit. You sit where you want to sit.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was just thinking too is that, when we see somebody that um, may or may not, we were talking about level of independence. We might have assumptions. And in my life, it's sometimes I think opening the door is helpful or reaching for something is helpful, but that individual may have wanted to do it themselves because it's important for them in their independence, that I have navigated the world. I know how to do this. And I think what I needed to learn was ask the person, like, what do you need in
Yeah,
this moment, rather than
right.
assume, because then that could just show me my ableism with, I'll grab it for you, would you like me to grab it? Some people do say no because heck, they have navigated this crazy world that was created against them so much that it could, let's they want, a person may want to be independent.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to what we said with the story, is like, this is your story through Greg Smith's lens.
That's very interesting that you brought that up too, because along with the story, along with the flow of the story, starting when I was a baby up till now, 65,
Hmm.
um, there are little, I don't sidetrack too far away from the story, but where it's appropriate, I put in little, let's say, life lessons
Hmm.
about what it's like, what it feels like to be in my situation, um, and so when you mention about opening doors, that's that's always it. I would to me, I have to be sensitive about that with people. And here's the reason why. Because I think people I have met in my life have been very kind and very good. And I'm happy to say that, especially in the world we live in now, where it's not always the case. But I think it's still the case. I really do.
Hmm.
And so people mean well. They
Yeah.
really do. So when people offer to open the door for you, I this is just me, my story again. Um, I generally say, okay,
Yeah.
because number one, I appreciate them doing it. And number two, I appreciate the thought, because I've been on the other side where I've needed someone to open the door and they either weren't around or they just looked away. And you know what I learned, especially when I was in college? I learned sometimes if, as a person with a disability, if you say no to someone who wants to help you, the look on their faces is like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not going to ask again.
Yeah.
So, in order for, I learned that if you say yes, they're going to help the next person in a
Yeah.
wheelchair,
Yeah.
the next person with a walker or a cane who may need assistance. They really, if you say no to someone, they get really hurt and really disappointed. And it's like, okay, maybe I can do this door, or maybe I can reach the thing on the shelf there. But if I say no, how are they going to react to the next person who really may need help even more than I do?
It's funny that you mention it too, because I think that's why the story stuck out so profoundly in my brain because I'm a sensitive person. So when I felt that sense of rejection of no, but it did help me also think through um, how to ask in the future. But there was a time interval between where I was feeling uncertain about if I was being helpful or harmful. And I think I had to sit with my own discomfort. And often now, we talked about stereotypes I get according to my life journey that we can always talk about another time. But what the most harmful thing is the assumptions people have.
Yes.
Most meaningful thing is when they pause and ask.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. It doesn't hurt to ask, may I open the door for you? Or, um, and generally I do get that in life. Someone just doesn't open the door and expect you to go through. They will ask, can I open the door for you? And, uh, and I guess what again, I generally say yes because again, I do need help. And number two, I'm thinking of the next person down the road, But I mean, what I would want to say about that is for people who are able-bodied to don't just assume, and that's what kind of what we're talking about today, misconceptions. Don't assume that that person can open that door. Ask them, talk to them, and the more you talk to them on on their level, then that opens the door,
Yeah.
literally and
Yeah. I
figuratively.
love all of our metaphors.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. You're really
yeah,
good at creating those. But yeah, and even the sign of, I'm just thinking, opening the door is a sign of respect for people in general. And we
yeah,
can make it, I used to turn down door opening because I thought it was a man's objective. I thought they had ulterior motives for a really long time of my life. I left,
right,
but I was very serious about it. It's like, no, I will open, I can do myself. Thank you. So I
yeah,
think also my lens, again, we're talking about all the lenses of my discussions through my own, with my own quirks.
right,
Now I do accept people opening the door and I'm very appreciative. And I open the door for most people because I find it to be very respectful, just like showing up on time and doing things so that, you know, we can translate it. The whole another point is like, this is a human thing. This is including people with all different backgrounds and all different needs in life. It's still
yeah,
a sign of respect, a sign of being seen, a sign of being valued as a human and appreciated, especially in a world where I've had so many doors like literally closed on my face. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
that felt great, you know?
yeah, yeah. You're right though. You hit it right on the nail. It's respect. It's you don't have to be in a wheelchair. You don't have to have a disability. It doesn't cost anything to be kind to someone else, right?
Hmm.
And so I think if it, even if it's something like opening the door, you know, why not? Why not do it, right? And that's that connection, that human bond, right? And so you may never see that person again, but there's that bond. You think about it. When you go to a convenience store, and people are going in and out and in and out. We have a convenience store up here called Wawa, which is great.
Mm.
The people in Philadelphia know about Wawa, Wawa, and you can get anything there.
Mhm.
But my Wawa out here in town, people are going in and out all day long, you know? And what I see there is people are holding doors for each other all day long.
Mm.
So we look at the world now, and yes, there's a lot of sadness and anger in the world. But if you look deep down inside, there's still a lot of kindness out there,
Yeah.
and people holding doors for each other. Don't know who they are. They have no ulterior motive. They're just being nice.
I I really appreciate that you brought that up because even when I have doubts of depression or like that darkness lens, or we hear in the news, which I'm often trying to turn off, so I don't watch the news very often. Is like we can get caught up in that I'm feeling a certain way, the world is dark. And if
Yeah.
we believe that thought, it can perpetuate. And this has happened to me. So through lived experience, I'll suggest it can be a very unhealthy, um,
Mhm.
just merry-go-round of dealing with this ruminating thought of the world is dark. And then your mind, if it wants to go out with that thought, it will look for ways to confirm it. And so when awareness, I think, is this thing here. Like we're aware of the thought, or we're aware now we met Greg. Now we understand from a different person's perspective. Now I understand, like, the awareness can help me have more thoughts around anything that I might have thought differently, like with the door. Now I'm actually thinking about it. When it comes to thinking that the world is full of dark heaviness, I notice that I hear it so much, then you adopt it, then you forget to appreciate the contrary.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if we say, you know what, today I'm just going to notice how many people open doors for other people, or I'm going to do that for somebody else and see their response or how I feel when I do
Yeah.
that for somebody, like that small token.
Yeah, and that's true. And what's cool about that is you pass it down and you pass it down, right? And soon you're opening the door one day, the next day you're doing it. Then somebody's opening the door for you,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And I think when you do something consistently like that, being nice to people, all of a sudden, it's like a habit, I cannot not open that door for that person. I
Yeah.
cannot be that rude to not offer to open that door.
Mhm.
And it's just, so I think that's what's cool about it. But, getting back to, yeah, being a person with disabilities, again, I can't speak for everyone else, but I could say I think most people appreciate the help, you
Mm.
know, they really do.
And also making sure things aren't harder than they need to be. Meaning, like, one thing that comes to my mind was Greg and I talked about your experience with your work application and your work interviews, and things that were obstacles created for you that weren't in reality. Would you like to share more about that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. Again, the topic is perceptions. And I share this in the book too, that when I started into the working world, well, first of all, even before I went to my first interview, it was you want to work, but you have a disability. You shouldn't. You stay home and watch I Love Lucy all day, right? Or just don't. You know, and so you get that. And so you have to overcome that. And then once you're out in the field and you want to work, and back in the 70s and 80s, it was showing up in person to do an interview, not a Zoom thing. And so I would apply for a job and it's, oh, your qualification. I got your resume, by the way, in the mail. It looks really good. Can we meet? I said, sure. So we meet face to face. Go in, the eyes are like, oh, you're in a wheelchair. Oh, wow. All of a sudden, you could sense the difference. You could sense the difference in the attitude, the enthusiasm not there. It's like, okay, you have listed on this paper what what your qualifications are for the job and your education. But you're in a wheelchair. I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can do because my experience with people with wheelchairs is there's, not only are they physically disabled, but mentally they are mentally challenged too. So sometimes that's the kind of attitude you get. This shock that, wow, I showed up. It's like, well, what are you supposed to do? Say, talk when you're talking on the phone, say, oh, by the way, I happen to be in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
I mean, does it supposed to be qualified for the job, right? And obviously, if I couldn't do the job because of my limitation, I wouldn't apply for the job. You
Yeah.
know, so that's just an example of perceptions. Just thinking that okay, you're in a chair, obviously you can't do the work, and that's not true. That's not true. Hopefully things are getting better because now we see that there are more and more people who are different, who are in workplaces now, and who are, and again, awareness, I think, is a big, big key. And that's why your blog, my book,
Yep.
things like that are big because it helps people to be more aware. And with being more aware, I think people are just more comfortable.
Yeah, and through your life and your experiences, you became quite an advocate for people in your work. Would you like to share what you did? Now retired.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, social worker, social worker for over 30 years, mostly in hospitals and nursing homes. So that was cool. That was really cool to give back when I was a kid. I think what was cool about it too, what I really loved was the fact that I think a lot of people who I worked with, residents, many people said, you know what it's like. And I was like, well, I don't know exactly what it's like, what you're going through, you know, but I can relate to some things. I can relate to not being able to get out of bed to get a drink of water. I can relate to the helplessness and the hopelessness because I had that touch my life too, especially when I was a kid breaking a lot of bones.
Hmm.
Um, I can relate to that. So I think being a social worker, I think it helped a lot to be able to relate. And I, I think people would see me and say, they would say to me, "Wow, you do know what it's like. You can relate." So yeah, so that's what I did for over 30 years, and I loved it because it was just giving back to people who really needed help and making a difference in someone's life. And that's what it's all about. I mean, well, otherwise, why are we here if we're not making a difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was thinking too, when people are reading this book, The Unbreakable and Unbreakable Spirit, what I would think is see where aspects of Greg's story you share. Like show the interconnectedness of human.
Yeah,
Because we talked too about Greg's the brittle bones affects that's a lot of physical, like you can tell a lot of physical signs of this condition, including his the bone differences, and you were breaking a lot of bones. The thing that's not seen is the emotional impact and the human behind what's going on with your body. And so my challenge to the audience here and the people that end up with this book, which I hope everyone is able to grab and to share what aspects of Greg's story they resonate with, they've learned from, they are now able to say, I see that human in a way that my stereotypes, my misconceptions, or my perceptions were creating obstacles, because I think it's so enlightening and enriching and creates deeper, meaningful connections and life. What would you share?
yeah, I agree. That's I totally agree. A couple weeks ago, I was honored to speak to a class down at the University of Pennsylvania. Um, students who are just about ready to graduate, and they're studying medical genetics. And I was asked to go down in person and talk. And it was so much fun, first of all. But what was cool about it too was I said, you guys are really important, very so important. You don't know how important you guys are because, like when I was a kid, there was no one around to talk to about. Because you're absolutely right, what you just said. Not only are you going through the physical pain and differences, but you're going through the emotions too. And back in the day, and I write about this, it's you're almost expected to deal with it by yourself, or it's almost like the get over it attitude.
Mhm.
Oh, just get over it. Um, it would have been nice to have someone who's studying medical genetics counseling to be there to just talk to. Or my parents, they had no one to talk to about it too, what was going on in their life. So I think it's very important to make those connections, support groups, that sort of a thing. And you're right. It's just building a bridge, building a bond, right?
Mhm.
Um, Between people with disabilities and people who are able-bodied. Because you're right. We we all have hearts and we all have feelings and we're all the same deep down inside. And it's like, as we said, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yep. Even though
Even though
even
it's
if
a
it has
great
a
cover.
really pretty cover, you never
Yeah,
know what's
exactly.
inside.
No, you don't know what's inside. You may be surprised because you may look at the book and say, "Oh, wow, this is going to be really a sad, sad, sad story," and it's going to make me depressed. And I don't want to read that. I want to be sad. You don't know what you're going to find inside until you try, until you look inside. You have to look inside in order to find out what is inside. I think my story is fun. There's a lot of times where people will laugh. Yeah, there are some points where people will cry. I have to admit that. But it's not consistent through the book where it's just one downer after another. No, no. People are different. People with disabilities are different too. And so we each have our own story. My story isn't a, how it is, how it's going to be. No, no, no. Everybody has their own story. This is just my story, right? Other people with other disabilities or people with osteogenesis imperfecta, they may have different stories. They may feel totally different than I do about life or about my experiences in life. This is just my story,
Mhm.
and I just decided to share it, with hopes that it will bring awareness and maybe help the next person down the line, like the next person who we hold the next door for.
Yeah, and when I'm thinking about the pain that we talked about, it's challenging in life when we do experience pain and then to really have to dive into it. And when I think if people are finding themselves reading something that they feel, oh, I want to put that down, like lean into what that's about. And when ready, progress a little bit more because when I hear and I read the pain, my heart's with you. And it hurts and I can't feel that physical pain, but I want it to be there.
Yeah,
And so we know ourselves, but I don't want to put it down and avoid it. There are aspects in my own life where I feel pain that I kind of don't want to talk about that. I want to avoid it. So you lean into it on your own time. But I've also experienced that when I have a condition that's also misunderstood or not understood and people don't try, to be put in a circumstance where that person says, oh, I'm going to have to put that away because it's too hard. And you're the individual living with it. Like that has been said to me enough to know that's BS if you care for that person. I'm so sorry. The discomfort of your life is too much for me to bear. So I'm going to let you bear that alone. Okay. Okay. This happens a lot. and what do we need, and how do we create an environment that's supportive and supportive for everybody involved in this situation. I don't want to trigger people by putting that out there because they need to keep them safe, but I just want to acknowledge, especially as somebody who has been abandoned or broken up with, or feeling of I'm going to discharge you because you're too much and I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm just going to let you go. I know that pain from my perspective, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. So I acknowledge, like, holy heck, yes, this is painful to read. I can't imagine what it was like. So live with that. Tell me more, and how can I support you right now?
Yeah, and it's true. You're right. It was. I just yeah, and I'm not saying it's all laughs and fun because, as I said, there's a lot of sad parts to it too. But you know what? I just wanted to be honest
Hmm.
with what I wrote, and a lot of people have asked, why did you write it? Well, because I wanted to share hope, because I think that's the theme in the book. In fact, it's on the cover, story of hope.
Yep. Story of
Because yeah, yeah, there it is, right underneath.
Story of hope.
And I think the publisher agreed with that. That it is a story of hope. That, yeah, everybody, we all have our challenges in life, and what have you, physical, or whatever challenges. The main thing is just to not give up hope. When you give up hope, everything is lost. Just hang in there, do the best you can, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry about people who say, "Get over it." You know? I mean, again, that's one of the reasons why you have your blog and I wrote my book. It's because we can increase in awareness. And so those people who are saying, "Get over it," or minimizing what you are going through,
Yes.
can hopefully become aware of different situations, that people are different in life, and everyone is an individual. And so, again, we talk about holding the door for the next person coming through. We're paying it forward. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, because it's paying it forward for the next generation to say, you know what, I'm going to hold the door for that next person, because, you know, hopefully they'll hold the door for me too. So,
Yeah, and I find that especially as I use humor to kind of break
yeah,
through, and I do this now. So I started Instagram. I was like, what the heck is up with Instagram? Everyone's on it, and with history of anorexia, I didn't want to be on
yeah,
it because I associate it with eating disorder. And then I got on it for a conference that I had the opportunity to be part of, and I was like, this isn't too bad. And then it becomes a creative outlet. And then I was realizing, like, right before, I was feeling a lot of energy. Some might name it
yeah,
anxiety,
yeah.
but I would make a reel, which I thought was funny, like a midday breakout dance. And like, that's my thing to enjoy right now. And I'm like, people can say all things about it and think I'm not a good dancer and I don't care. We can dance however we want. We can dance seated. We can dance however it is. We can enjoy the music without
Yeah,
needing, you move it, whatever your body can move and desires to move,
right.
or you listen to that song, or you enjoy whatever the creative outlets, like, just whatever can help not like cheer you up in like a superficial way, but it's like, yeah, that pain's there, acknowledge. And we are Greg is really funny. You're so funny. You're very witty, and I just sometimes wish I could make jokes as quickly because I like to laugh, but I don't know. Some people think I'm funny, but I think it's probably because I say weird things. I don't know. I don't really know.
Yeah, right, exactly. Who knows, right? I know one thing though. I think it always helps to keep a sense of humor,
Hmm.
to laugh, to smile. I think, people have asked me before, um, with why the average lifespan is only 25 years, and here I am 65.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? I think one of the reasons, among many, is because you have to keep a sense of humor. You smile. You try. Yeah, you've got painful times, and you've got but I mean, I've always tried to keep a positive attitude too. And I mean, geez, there's so much about life that is so serious and so, it's like, come on, you know,
Yeah, I think
lighten up a
underneath
little.
my shirt says nerd or something, very, very serious shirt here. But I think also
Mhm.
it's because you live a life that's like you deal with serious things in your life.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah,
think it's like some people have to try really hard to find seriousness in life, but God-given gift. Like you've dealt with serious things, and that humor. I think to your point of we did talk about like Greg is 65 years old, was told, and this a lot of people get told prognoses that may or not be close to what what their life looks like.
right,
And there are studies, about the outlook, and though like a positive outlook, of course, we're not saying is a cure all and it can certainly advance, but I
right,
do think there's merit. And we also talked about, as two people that have faced a prognosis, that it makes you question life and take a step back. It's what would it mean to be perseverating around that number versus like making the most of each day. And I think often the people that we share these deep dives into like meaning of life, they've had near death experiences or told about death being an imminent thing. So then
yeah,
people maybe in the messy middle of not really appreciating that death is,
hmm,
because we always think it's going to come out way, way, way down the road.
yeah,
But I shared with you the losses of people close to me at age 29, and those pivotal moments in my life that I don't do the best I can with living each day and mindful, like making the most of it. I do notice I tolerate less the things that cause me significant distress that I can change. Like
right,
if someone's going to start treating me really with disrespect or make you feel worth less than them, like lower tolerance, and the awareness and being who you are and showing up the way that you want to show up, so then the people around you, you also can create the environment that you want. There are positive people that are going to see you as human. They're going to treat you very authentically for your humanness. They're going to appreciate the
right,
gifts that you give. And in as a human, we often hyper focus on those negative comments and the negative people or the bad things that are happening in the world. So I think the message is just like if somebody is noticing they're in that mind place where like I feel really, really, really bad all the time, what aspects, like what needs to change, and what's the next best step to start getting into a direction that's a more positive one with a more enjoyable life, because we talked about quality of life.
quality of life is the key, right?
Hmm.
That is the key. That's the way I look at my life now. I mean, I've been through the surgeries, I've been through the rehabs, I've been through that already. What I've asked my doctors to keep in mind, is quality of life. And it doesn't matter if you're 65 or 25. Quality of life should be a main focus in your life. You know, Oh, you just brought something up there real quick, Jillian, that before I forget. You were saying about changes, and you're absolutely right. I think some things in our life we can't change. My disability, you can't see my legs right now. I can't change them. And the one thing I read about in the book is that is something that is always with me, you know? And so I've learned how to deal with it. Some things you just can't change in life, like my legs, right? But there are things you can change. And if it means trying to keep a positive attitude about life, that things can be worse, because they can be. One of the two aspects of my life that I talk about in the book a great deal that helped me to cope and help me to accept my fate in life and to help me to accept um, the things, some things you can't change and some things you can. When I went to grade school as a kid, I went to a special school back in the 60s for people, kids with disabilities.
Hmm.
It's not like it is now where kids would be integrated, but I thought about that a great deal because every day I would go to school and learn what I was supposed to learn, my arithmetic and whatever, but I would be up with other kids with disabilities. And what impressed upon me now that I look back on it is that I always thought, things can be different. Things can be worse, right? The person next to me sharing the desk may have cancer or what have you, may have MS or something.
Yeah.
So they're looking at me as I'm looking at them. And it's like, you know, things can be worse. Be I think that just helped me accept my situation in life. When I went to Lourdes, France, and that's in the book too, and I saw so many people go there who are sick and
Mhm.
dying and um, meeting people there, and becoming friends with people. Um, I remember a group of boys from a blind school in Dublin, Ireland, who we met. Uh, we go to Lord's, went to Lord's every summer, and have tremendous faith. And I just, that helped me realize, you know what? There's these young kids, 15, 16 years old, who are smiling and they're at Lord's, and it's like they've accepted what's happened to them and they're making the best of it
Yeah.
and they're dealing with it. Why should I complain? You know? Why should I complain? I need to accept what's happened to me in life and deal with it. And just because things could always be worse.
Yeah, and I think too what the when we compare to people, I notice I compare myself, like my weaknesses, to somebody else's strengths, and we never know what someone else is going through. And often we can fixate ourselves on what we can't do, but if we change the mindset to what can we do? And
Yes.
your point is in a coaching program, and they always said, like, if you resist reality, you lose 100% of the time. So we know what's our reality. And also, if you're desiring to do something, we all have gifts to share. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have this societal construct of what we should be. It may or may not be in alignment with those gifts. So identifying who you are and what gifts do you have? What gifts would you like to share? Who would you like to be? Because people are going to say things no matter what. And what I realized, like, if we are leaning into our true integrity, what we really value and want to bring to the world, it's not going to matter as much. It still might matter because we're humans and it stinks to
Yeah.
not be liked or to be rejected or for someone to say anything bad. But the more we can ground ourselves in just that self-compassion of who we are and that understanding of who we are and then of that acknowledgement that we are worthy. And if somebody, I always think bullies in particular, we'll just use bullies or an example, or people
Mm.
that say things that are mean, which are bullies, but maybe not meant to be. But often, if someone says something that's judgmental, it's critical, it's usually a reflection of their internal biases, their internal insecurities, and things like that.
Right. Right.
And at what point, we have those people in our lives, and yeah, we can focus our energy on helping to educate and change them, or we can just do our best and move forward towards the people that make us feel better, they value, they're taking the time. It's a mutual work effort, meaning that um, when we are trying so hard to people please somebody that's not giving it back,
Yeah.
or to educate someone that's not really interested in taking it in, we become exhausted, and it's
That's very true because um, people are only educated if they want to be educated.
yeah.
If people want to learn more about, and we've talked about this, sitting down with someone and getting to know the inside of the book rather than just the cover again. Um, it's because they want to. It's
Hmm.
because they want to take the time to um, to delve into the heart, not just the perception, which we're talking about of my legs, or someone else who has a disability. It's like So you're absolutely right. That's true because I think I let it bother me more than it does now. But like what I used to get a lot of, was staring. I go to the mall or the ball game or something, people would stare, and I just, it's still tough sometimes, but I've learned how to deal with it because I just I just think people are just sometimes naturally like curious about things, well, uncomfortable about things. And again, we've talked about awareness, helping out. Jillian, I think the people who wanna learn more and be aware will take the time and effort to do that. People who just don't care or just don't want to deal with it, they won't. So I think I've had to learn through the years that, okay, I can't keep trying to, make this person who they're never going to be. You
Hmm.
know, we have to, I think, accept the fact that some people just don't want to change. They just want to be who they are, and that's fine. If they rather just ignore it and helping, say, I don't want to deal with it. But, what are you going to do? I think, you know, um, I'm trying to remember now. There was a prayer that I really loved when I was a kid of St. Francis. And it was, give me the serenity to, something about changing the things that I can't change, accepting. I'll
Yeah.
come up with it. You know what? I'm going to, now, that's my homework. I'm going to find that and I want to have that for next time we talk,
All
right?
right. Sounds good.
But it's such a meaningful prayer that grant me the serenity to accept things I can't change, right? And so, yeah, I think that's very important.
Yeah. Somebody might give you the cheat sheets in the comments down below. And I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
such a great point, right? For anyone that's watching that wants to know more, first, a great way to learn a little bit more about Greg Smith here is to grab the book. Also, for people that are going to help us with the things that we are going to crush, whether it
Oh,
be
yeah,
you
can't
give
forget.
us, yeah, you give us the topics that you're interested in us discussing together. You
Yeah.
ask us the questions. We don't hold back. However, we need your help in identifying the item that we will crush
Mhm.
during the episode. So Greg has given you the break for today, has chosen the item for us. Greg, are you ready?
I have, yes, I have it.
All
Just
right.
seriously, one thing to piggyback off what you just said.
All
You're
right.
right. I read my book like I'm, a lot of people have said this who've read, like I'm sitting there talking,
Yeah.
not just reading, just having a nice conversation. And that's what you and I have been doing, right? And we'll continue to do. And that's what I want everyone who's watching to just sit, watch, experience, right? And just like we're just in someone's living room, we're just talking to each other.
It's so,
The olive.
all right.
The
We're going to
olive.
see how Greg crushes an olive. Do,
Okay,
do,
you
do.
ready?
All
So
right.
let's think of this olive as perceptions we've been talking about, right? And we want to crush these perceptions, or these could be stereotypes or whatever. And all of a sudden, you just like,
You can even hear
ew,
it.
look at it dripping down like, look,
Yes.
poor perceptions. Oh. Well, you know what you do with those perceptions? You just eat it.
Yep. And we know what they'll look like when they come out later. So
Oh yeah, yeah, like tomorrow morning or something.
well,
Right?
we may or may not share the details in the next
Yeah,
episode. That's with
yeah,
me or Greg.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
We won't.
you've got the answer on that, but we will come back to you for more. And thank you so much to Greg for
Thank you,
joining
Dylan.
me and for continuing this discussion. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you today.
It's been an honor to be with you again, and I look forward to the next time.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone that's here. And we hope that you come again next time. Make sure to subscribe so that you know
Yeah,
when
yeah.
Greg is here again.
Thank you.